Good evening. The meeting is now reconvened to open session. The board would like to remind the public that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also available via live stream for the public through links found on the front page of the RUSD website. Trustee Hepp, will you please report any action taken in closed session?
Yes. So in closed session, the board voted to issue charges for dismissal with an imposition of immediate unpaid suspension against one classified employee from their position pursuant to Education Code 45113. The vote was unanimous. Also in closed session, the board voted to release one classified probationary employee from their position pursuant to Education Code 45113. The vote was unanimous.
Thank you so much. Tonight we have Braden Haney from Rocklin High School. Welcome, Braden, as our student board representative. Braden, will you please introduce the color guard and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of colors by the Rocklin Unified School District's Junior ROTC Color Guard and the Pledge of Allegiance. The commander and U.S. flag bearer for this evening's color guard is Cadet Major Kevin Laguna Gonzalez. The state flag is carried by Cadet Captain Sophia Burkhalter. The right guard is Cadet Major McKenna McVicker. The left guard is Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Audrey Throkel. And the alternates for tonight are Cadet Colonel Clayton Hove. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Color Guard. We appreciate the professional job that they do for us each meeting. We'll now move to item 5.1, our special recognition and presentations portion of the meeting. Chief Dosage, will you please introduce our family partners in education recognition tonight?
Good evening, President Price, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. The Family Partners in Education program allows the Rocklin Unified School District to recognize family engagement and involvement to help our students achieve excellence during the school year. Antelope Creek Elementary, Brian Arcuri is introducing the Zargar Mohammadi family for tonight's Family Partners in Education recognition.
Good evening, board, President Price, Superintendent Stock. Great to be here. I feel like I see you all the time now, but this is really good stuff that I get to come and do, and no change on that tonight. We've got a wonderful family for you here, Mr. Zargar, Ms. Mohammadi, and Soraya and Sahil here, who contribute so much to Antelope Creek. And Ms. Mohammadi is always at PTC, working on fundraising events, raising money for the school, present. Mr. Zargar is on our site council and advises us. This is somebody that I love going to and asking questions and getting knowledge. And what I also love is his sense of humor. And if you ever have a chance to talk to him, it'll come out, which I love. And then finally, the last thing I'll tell you about this family that I love is when Mr. Zargar and Ms. Mohammadi bring us donuts on Friday from Jasmine's, which I'm happy to plug up here too, local establishment. So they're just giving good people who are in it, not just for their students, but for all Antelope Creek students and all Rocklin students. So I'm just happy to honor them tonight for you. Congratulations.
Well, I will echo that sentiment. Thank you so much. I know how much hard work it can be on the PTC, and being part of Site Council is so valuable. There have been so many positive changes on the Antelope Creek campus over the last year or two, and just happy to have really involved families that are in touch with what students need and spend the time and, you know, bribe with donuts maybe a little bit. That's okay. It's welcomed. So thank you.
Chief DeSange, will you please introduce our employee recognition tonight?
President Price, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Tonight for our employee recognition, Rocklin High School Assistant Principal Mike Pappas will join us in introducing Herbert Jimenez.
Thank you.
President Price, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock, it is my absolute honor this evening to recognize Mr. Herbert Jimenez. He has been an absolute cornerstone of Rocklin High for give or take about 19 years. What I've learned in education, so I've been in education for about 20 years, and what I've learned is that every single colleague on our campus makes a huge difference. And Herbert is one of those colleagues that makes Rocklin High School not just a better place, but a great place. He is one of the most reliable, giving, positive colleagues who you will ever find. And it's pretty special because anytime we need something, we can get on that walkie-talkie, we can call Herbert, and I am telling you, he will be right there. He will drop whatever he is doing to help out and take care of whatever is needed, and that is crucial to our school being a great school. So we just want to thank Herbert. I also want to point out something that's very special is that Herbert also, in a sense, brings a legacy because his family really is a Rocklin Unified School District family with his wife, who also works here in the district, and then his son, Steven, who's one of our top-notch instructional aides at Rocklin High School. And really, that's a testament to Herbert and his entire family. And so just want to recognize Herbert and really let everybody know that Rocklin High School would not be the place that it is without Herbert. Thank you, Herbert.
Thank you.
So listen, I really feel like a parent is someone who cares for you. They care for your home and they care for your heart. And for that reason, I really feel like our custodians are kind of a parent of our school. They take care of the school, they take care of our classrooms, they take care of our kids and our families and our teachers. And a school really cannot function or run properly without an outstanding custodian. So I am super honored that we are honoring you tonight. And thank you so much for what you do to care for our schools and to care for our students and our families.
Next, we ask you to continue with the recognition of Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, School Board Color Guard, and JROTC for the 2024-25 school year.
President Price, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Tonight's board meeting is the last one while schools are in session. We would like the board to recognize the Air Force Junior Reserves Officers Training Corps School Board Color Guard for their contribution, dedication, and commitment to presenting the colors during board meetings throughout the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Come on up. Major Pearl, please come up as well. Thank you.
So this is one of those great things. Every meeting we get to see you guys. We see you guys out in public. Just thank you for your service. Thank you for hoisting the colors, all the work. I have a handful of these certificates, so I'm gonna need some help. But again, thank you guys for everything you do.
Thank you. Chief Dosage, will you please introduce our student board representatives' recognition for the 2024-25 school year?
President Price, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Also tonight, we would like to recognize the 2024-2025 student board members who have demonstrated professional civic engagement in representing the RUSD student body.
Okay, I know we have Braden here, and do we have Adriana Boyce and Kylie Johnson? Okay, well, you guys come on up. I'm going to come down and read these. Yes, let's give it to her. Let's make her hold it. It's very official. Perfect. Okay, and Braden will give you yours after your meeting. So this is a little bit lengthy, but I think it's definitely worth our time because we appreciate so much the wonderful job you guys did. And I wanted to just share what your activity director had written about you. And we as a board appreciate you coming to all of the meetings and being such good representatives and participants. Thank you. Okay, so Kylie, this was written by actually for Victory, the principal, Mr. Hutton. At the entrance arch of Victory High, a message reads, "Victory belongs to the most persevering," and I can state without reservation that Kylie Johnson is one of the most kind-hearted, most compassionate, and most persevering individuals you'll ever meet. Kylie is a Rocklin Unified homegrown student who started her academic career as a kindergarten bulldog at Rocklin Elementary, and then a Springview Middle School Eagle for 7th and 8th grade, and then transitioned to Rocklin High School for 9th and 10th grade. In 2023, Kylie became a Panther, joining Victory High School her junior year. Her commitment to academics earned her a perfect 4.0 GPA her entire senior year and an April graduation. Good for you. Kylie's leadership, dedication, and compassionate nature was immediately recognized by students and staff alike. Nominated by her peers, Kylie served as Victory High ASB president and represented Rocklin Alternative Education Center as our student representative to the Board of Trustees. During her tenure at Victory, she was a representative of the LCAP Student Forum, a member of Victory High School's Interact Club, as well as received multiple academic attendance and character awards. As a prolific artist, Kylie's work has adorned our classrooms, office, and multi-purpose room over the last 2 years. Kylie's long-term plans are to become a cosmetologist and perhaps own her own salon, seeing it as her opportunity to give back to the community by helping them feel better about themselves. We know that wherever Kylie goes, she will bring about greatness. We are incredibly grateful to have been part of our journey and wish her the best as she follows her dreams. No one says it like Mr. Hutton, Kylie. That is awesome, and we are so excited for you and proud of you, and you deserve a big round of applause. Okay, Braden Haney, let's see here what Mr. Thompson had to say. I know it's all good things. Braden has been an outstanding ASB president who has embedded his own personality in the position as well as the program. He has embraced his position with confidence, humility, and heart. Rather than only focusing on the successes that the program has in place, he has worked hard to continue those successes while also focusing on building a fresh, positive culture centered around unity, purpose, and student involvement. This forward-looking focus has benefited the Rocklin High School community in a number of different ways. Spending 4 years in student government is evidence of Braden's deep commitment to serving the student body. Giving up 4 years of electives to lead and represent his peers is a selfless act to better the community at large rather than only focusing on self. Whether as a class representative, class president, or ASB president, Braden has modeled what it means to lead with integrity and spirit. This year, his leadership stretched even further, facilitating campus-wide conversations around culture, inclusivity, and student voice through his work. Outside of student government, Braden is a member of National Honor Society, California Scholarship Federation, and is the founder and president of the Pickleball Club. Yes. He is also an Eagle Scout for the Boy Scouts of America. Braden will leave his mark on Rocklin High as he prepares to serve a full-time mission in the Spain-Madrid North Mission. In serving as a student board representative, he has expressed his gratitude to have had the opportunity to work alongside the RUSD board this year. He is looking forward to life beyond Rocklin High School, and I have no doubt he will make an impact at whatever destination he lands. Us too. We agree with those words, Braden. And actually, I want you guys to both have these as well because it's so nice, and your moms can put them in your books of remembrance or something. So you deserve that. And a big round of applause for you as well, Braden. Cheers. Okay, we're just going to take just a minute and have the board come down and do a group picture really quick with our student representative. We'll be fast. We'll try to be fast. Jump down really quick. Yes, all of us. No, you go for it. Big night for you, Sandeep. All right, item 5.5. Now we would like to recognize the Rocklin Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, President Price, trustees, and superintendent Stock. As you all know, the Rocklin Unified School District values its strong partnerships with our staff, families, and students throughout their educational journeys in our schools. Additionally, we appreciate our partnership with various organizations, including the Rocklin Area Chamber of Commerce. The Rocklin Area Chamber of Commerce has been a long-standing and valued partner for the Rocklin Unified School District, including the Chamber's Leadership Rocklin program.
Thank you so much. Come on up, Leadership Rocklin, and whoever you guys have sent, we're excited to thank you.
Well, I have to say, it is a joy to get to be the one that gets to present this to you because it has been so beautiful. Many of us have gotten to participate in Leadership Rocklin and learn from you and your leadership. And Travis, we were actually in the same class. So look, our cohort is doing big things. Look at you now, the cohort leader. Yes, yeah. So 2020, I think, spit out some good stuff, some crazy stuff, but some good stuff. But we just wanted to take a moment as a board just to publicly recognize and appreciate not only the relationship we have with our chamber and many community partners, but your leadership and what you have done in building great, incredible leaders that give back. School districts couldn't exist without incredible community partnerships like the Rocklin Area Chamber of Commerce. And so, Robin Trimble, the CEO of Rocklin Chamber, it's an honor to have you here tonight so we can recognize you. I think we're coming up on how many years here at the Rocklin Chamber? I thought it was 20. Okay, well, again, it has just been a blessing to get to learn from you. If anybody has not had a 30-minute coffee date with Robin, I am telling you, she will inspire you to go and change the entire world in 30 minutes or less. And so I appreciate that about you, Robin. And Travis, as the cohort leader, it is not easy to wrangle 20 community leaders that all want to do incredible things in the city, but help focus them on one project. And I have to tell you, I hope the entire cohort feels our appreciation to have a group that size come out onto one of our campuses, Rocklin Elementary. They did a beautiful project out on the playground, and it was a wonderful opportunity for the kids to see how much they are cared for, how much the community appreciates them, believes in them. And so we just wanted to do a public thank you on behalf of the board to say thank you for your investment, not only in our students, not only in our community, but specifically with Leadership Rocklin and the project you guys did on our Rocklin Elementary campus. So thank you.
Thank you to both of you for all you do for the schools and for our city. We appreciate your efforts so much. Thank you. Okay, we want to thank you and your families for joining us. You're more than welcome to stay, but now would be a great time to go if you would like. So we move on with the rest of our meeting. Okay, we will now move to item 7.1, comments and report from our student board representative, Braden. Will you please share your report?
Absolutely. We have 11 schools to get over, so it's a little bit. But starting off at Parker Whitney. At Parker Whitney, the focus is on celebrating student growth and community spirit. Students are being recognized for their academic and attendance achievements as the year wraps up. 6th graders are currently enjoying science camp and will be honored next week with a special promotion breakfast. The last day of school will include a DJ, fun activities for all grades, and the beloved 6th grade red carpet walk to send off their oldest Panthers in style. At Whitney High School, Whitney softball has made history. They secured the 2025 Division II Sac Joaquin Section Championship with a 2-0 victory over Rocklin. Dang it. The first ever section title game between the two schools in any sport. This monumentous win is a tribute to the dedication of their athletes and coaches. Next stop, the NorCal Championships beginning June 3rd. Sierra Elementary. At Sierra Elementary is ending the year by celebrating student learning and growth. On Thursday, May 29th, they will host the 6th grade exhibition showcasing students' projects inspired by the United Nations goals for sustainable development. With support from staff, mentors, students researched and developed self-directed inquiries presented through visual and performing arts, digital media, and language arts. The event will also feature a special recognition at 8:45 a.m. as the Whitney High School BITA program, led by Brett Hunter, gifts custom display boxes made from past exhibition t-shirts. Special thanks go to Trustee Derek Counter for the inspiration and support. Antelope Creek. Antelope Creek recently hosted its spring book fair and second annual Falcon Museum during open house. Every grade level displayed integrated art projects ranging from clay to 2D to 3D media arts, and even performing arts during class presentations. Teachers completed 3 arts and integrated units per grade level during spring professional development, including one to launch the next school year. This week, all students are enjoying the Crocker Art Arc, a traveling museum with interactive exhibits and hands-on projects. They're gearing up for the full launch of the Spark the Arts in August. At Rock Creek is closing out the school year with excitement. After finishing CAPS testing, students celebrated with an ice cream sundae party. They also exceeded their MAP growth goals. End of the year events include field trips, volunteer appreciation, a send-off for returning seniors, and promotion celebrations for their 6th graders. It's been a great year of growth and community. At Breen. In Breen kindergarten classrooms, students are exploring the life cycles of plants, chicks, and butterflies. They've observed caterpillars metamorphose, is it phase? Or metamorphose? Sorry, obviously. And seed sprouts. In addition to their science work, they created Mother's Day art, practiced phonics, and continued to build their sight word vocabulary. Twin Oaks. Twin Oaks is wrapping up the school year with Spirited Spirit Week for their Timberwolves. 2nd graders performed Character Matters for peers and families, and 6th graders have been enjoying activities like the Greek Olympics and a picnic in the park. On Friday, May 30th, students will celebrate the PBIS Pack Party, followed by a school-wide field day and a 6th grade promotion ceremony at 8 a.m. on the last day of school. Sunset Ranch. Sunset Ranch gives thanks to alums Asher Smith, who led an Eagle Scout project to repaint the front parking lot, bringing fresh curb appeal with the help of a volunteer team. They're looking forward to hosting a congratulatory breakfast for returning seniors on Friday, May 30th. That same day, students will participate in the final PBIS end-of-year drawing, exchanging their positivities for great behavior rewards. Springview Middle School. Springview is excited for the upcoming promotion activities and other end-of-year events planned for next week. It's been a year full of meaningful learning and memorable moments. Quarry Trail. At Quarry Trail, the Broncos are dancing into the final days of the year. This week's annual dance show brought families together, while the noon supervision team hosted a fun 6th grade kickball tournament during lunch. They are celebrating their 6th grade students during promotion and looking ahead to next year with enthusiasm, especially as their bilingual Broncos prepare to enter 3rd grade in the expanding Spanish dual language immersion program. And finally, and last but not least, Rocklin High School. At Rocklin High, students are wrapping up a strong finish to both spring sports season and the academic semester. Our Thunder athletes gave it their all this spring, competing with heart, discipline, and pride, representing RHS with excellence across every field and court. As this final full week of classes comes to close, energy is high on campus. The much-anticipated senior rally is happening this Friday, where the class of 2025 will be honored in true Rocklin style with music, memories, and school spirit. Next week, a well-deserved celebration for our seniors with the full slate of Senior Week activities. It's a time to reflect, celebrate, and enjoy the final moments of high school together before graduation. The countdown is on. Go Thunder. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Braden. You've done such a great job. We're going to miss you. We appreciate you and just are so excited for what the future holds. So thank you so much. Okay, any of my colleagues' comments from them?
Braden, thank you for the report. You always do a phenomenal job, and it's always great hearing about all the things going on all of our campuses, especially as they wrap up for the school year. And I know you're wrapping up yourself as well. So just wanted to do, again, a thank you for being here and representing a really important student voice. I really appreciate that. Just a couple updates for my colleagues. We recently had CSBA Delegate Assembly, and just wanted to update you. That's where we have school board members that represent regions and go to the state level to really ask them to really represent the needs of our areas on a state magnitude. And I'd say a lot of the conversations centered around safety on our campuses, but really it got quite vocal about unfunded mandates. Really asking the state to please, when directives or mandates are given, to make sure those are fully funded, to make sure that districts can execute them, and specifically talking about we have areas that look very different. Placer looks very different than LA. We also have rural areas that look quite different, and so really asking for those mandates as they come to be fully funded. And they really focused on special education and TK expansion. So there was lots of good conversation. And I was really hopeful. I really felt like there were school board members throughout the state rallying together to really say, we want to make sure that we are able to compensate our teachers. We want to make sure we are able to have the best facilities and campuses for our students. We want to make sure we have the best programs for our students. And so it was really invigorating and encouraging to get to spend the weekend with school board members from throughout the state. Additionally, we had our safety committee meet, and so just wanted to thank two of us are able to sit on that at any one time. I know we have different committees. President Price, it was great to get to sit on that with you, and I really felt like it was really great conversation now that we've been able to have our safety assessments on our campuses to really, bring some of that information back and really start talking about actionable items, that we don't wait, but we're able to really look at what can we do. And I really appreciated that agenda focused on some key areas: physical safety of our campuses, any additional employee training that's being asked for, emergency planning and policies and procedures. And I know a few of the items that were good to talk about: fencing or no fencing. I hear that a lot. What's best practices? Check-in procedures. How detailed do you want that to be? Police and fire maps. And so I just felt like it was really good conversations. We had some collaborative partners in the room. And so just wanted to update back. We've now gotten back our assessments, and we're now looking at some actionable items to be able to bring back to the board soon. And then finally, back to school. Back to school is always a fun night. I think in my first year, I literally tried to hit almost every single campus and realized quickly, even with tennis shoes on, we were talking, I think I got 8 minutes on each campus, and it really wasn't as beneficial. But I was able to hit multiple campuses, and I just have to say, it's always so encouraging to see parents and students engaging with their teachers and engaging on their campuses, and to see kids excited to show off their rooms. I know Twin Oaks, it was great to see their chickens again. In the kindergarten, I always try to, it's always fun to try to swing by there. But I have to say, there was just so many photos that I was able to take of just teachers creating engaging classroom environments. I mean, these classrooms felt like homes, and I just thought it was just so beautiful to see the kids excited to show mom and dad and grandma and grandpa everything they had been working on. So just a shout out to our teachers, our staff, just for making that a really positive night for our students. I heard many positive things from our parents. And, it was fun to see the differences between our campuses. I got to swing by Rock Creek as well, and even Rucola, and just to see each campus has its own culture, yet every single one is obviously executing incredible excellence for our students. And so just a shout out, we're almost there, teachers.
So give an update from REEF, so Rocklin Educational Excellence Foundation. We do have the Starlight Soiree coming up on October 16th, Quarry Park, so please attend. I will say congratulations to both Rocklin and Whitney for the softball championship. Great to see our two teams going at it. Give a little credit to Whitney for winning it, but, thanks. Division II, yeah, going off. Sierra Elementary, the IB presentations are tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And then just a little update from my neighbor. So Asher Smith is actually my neighbor for Sunset Ranch. It was really great to see him and the team go out there. They curb painted Sunset Ranch. So just service leadership and taking care of it. It looks amazing. So shout out to him. I will say that we did have about a week ago, the 2025 Placer County Classified School Employees, Teachers, and School Counselors of the Year. We had 8 recipients. So individually, Rocklin Unified did very well. So congratulations to Michelle Lininger for clerical and administrative services. Custodial maintenance services is Chris Gavin from Rocklin. We had Nadine Coldwell from Rocklin for food and nutrition services. Going through all of them. Paraprofessional services, Christine Gillis won it for Rocklin. Technical services, Emily Buck was a winner. And then we had a few teachers. Middle school, Angie Rydell for Rocklin. And then Holly Gottwaltz from Rocklin in the special category. And then our school counselor, Tim Worth. So all of them from Rocklin Unified won. So congratulations to them for their 2025 awards.
Okay, a couple things been covered already. It's just such a busy time of year, a little stressful, but mostly fun, right? I've been able to take part in a couple of fun events lately. The annual Marge Crawford golf tournament that's put on by RAPA. It helps to raise money for our USD students in need. It was a very fun, great event put on by the volunteers who worked really hard on that. I also was able to go to one of the 5th grade concerts that was Sunset Ranch, Quarry Trail, and Rucola. Super fun. Just so cool to see how much growth happens from the 5th graders to the 6th grade, just with their learning of their instruments. The choir teachers, the band teachers are just so great with the students. You're working with all of these kids who maybe have never even touched an instrument before, and they just have excellent results. The kids are having so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I also, on Memorial Day, was able to come out for the first Rocklin High Murph workouts. Faced my fears and did that. Was going to split it, and then we just went for it. And that was great. So Tim Kenny put that on, and just nice to hear a little bit of the story behind it and his why for doing it. And so we were able to have fun and also kind of, be in the spirit of Memorial Day and what that's all about. Otherwise, I'm just really excited for graduations coming up, and I'm hoping that the weather isn't too punishing for all of us out there. So good luck to all of the students that are going to be taking their finals, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. Thanks.
Okay, let's see what is left from my list. This is, hectic and busy and fun month of May. I also was able to attend the elementary mega concerts as well as Granite Oaks concert, and so impressed, actually a little bit emotional when I see all of these young students having exposure, every single one, to music. And as well, Granite Oaks finished with an arrangement from Wicked that was so timely and so impressive. So that was really fun. Trustee Sadoff mentioned the safety meeting. Thank you, Mr. Flowers, for your efforts there. We really appreciate it. Look forward to hearing more about some of our safety assessments tonight, and appreciate the focus. I know that's really important to all of us as board members. In addition, I just wanted to share some information with my colleagues. I was invited to a meeting. All of our PTC presidents meet once a month, and they invited me to attend, and it was a really great meeting. It was a really, especially a great opportunity for me to thank them personally from myself and from each of us for all of the work that they do to make our schools run and the hours and hours that they put in. We had a great discussion, how to better engage our community. We talked about numerous things, including one parent said, "Why are we as parents still teaching driver's ed?" Which I understand painfully after teaching 5 teenagers to drive. But it was a really great opportunity to talk to them, and I look forward to meeting with them again and appreciate all of our PTC works around for all of our sites. Also wanted to give Asher Smith a third shout out. I just want to read specifically what he did. We have had a few Eagle Scouts do projects for our sites, and they make such a big difference, and we appreciate it. And I just wanted to point out, he painted 350 feet of fire curb. He actually, okay, let's see. It sounds like that actually was his goal. Let me read it. He committed to redoing 350 feet of fire curb in front of Sunset Ranch, but he actually delivered 1,400 feet, completing the entire main parking lot. This included 27 sets of stenciling. He provided training to his fellow scouts, and together they contributed to 52 hours of work over the weekend. Wow is right. That curb project, along with a library bench that he also helped with and built in the fall, completed his Eagle Scout project. What a great accomplishment and what a great service to our schools and to our community. So thank you to Asher. We appreciate you so much. Let's see. I think that is it. Just excited for graduation and the end of the school year events and summer coming up. So Superintendent Stock.
Yes, I do have a few comments. Just to kind of update and build off Trustee Counter's comments, that out of those 8 people that he announced, 2 actually were Placer County Employees of the Year. And so Holly Gottwalls is the High School Placer County Teacher of the Year, so we congratulate her. She serves at our Adult Transition Program and will be nominated for the State Teacher of the Year competition. And then Nadine Caldwell at Parker Whitney is the Placer County Nutrition Services Employee of the Year. So late breaking update there. Also, just as the tremendous amount of work that goes in behind the scenes for graduations and promotions that make those go off just without a hitch and make them such special lifelong memories. We appreciate all involved in those events. Also, for our summer school and extended year programs, those start up within a week of graduation and promotion. And so in those, we've been planning those since the winter. So thanks to all the people getting ready to keep summer going for many of our student learners. And also, I wish Mr. Curry was still here, because as part of our Spark the Arts work, Antelope Creek Elementary School this week is hosting Crocker Art Museum's Arc of the Art. Arc was featured on Channel 3 several times today. And so what it is, they literally bring almost like a half-size portable classroom out to the school, like a mini art museum, and there's a docent, and kids can go through it all week. So if you have a chance the rest of the week to stop out and see it, do that. They worked on that project for about a year, so it's real exciting to have that there. And then also, we want to, our ROTC kids who were here, wish we could have mentioned this while they were here. They were at the Memorial Day athletics game down in West Sacramento and did the color guard for that. And so if you missed them there, you can see them on July 4th, where they'll be doing the color guard for that home athletics game as well. So again, just lots of good things going on here in Rocklin Unified.
Thank you so much. We will now move to item 8.1, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion followed by a roll call vote. There is no separate discussion of these items unless the Board of Trustees or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Any items removed will be voted upon following the motion to approve the consent calendar. Does any trustee wish to remove an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items?
So moved.
First by Trustee Counter, second by Trustee Hupp. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Braden Haney.
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes.
Julie Hupp.
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland.
Yes.
Rochelle Price.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Item 9.1. Here we go. Hannah Anderson, Director of Innovation, School Programs, and Accountability, will now join us to present the RUSD 2025-2026 Local Control and Accountability Plan, and we will follow with a public hearing.
Good evening, President Price, trustees, Superintendent Stock. Picking up where we left off earlier this month, I'm here this evening to present the Local Control and Accountability Plan for public hearing this evening. During tonight's presentation, I will remind trustees about the educational partner input and overarching themes in the plan, review the draft plan, and discuss next steps. Over the course of this school year and last school year in the development of this 3-year plan, specifically for review for next year's plan, we had the opportunity to meet with educational partners that included meeting with students, staff, and families, as well as meeting with other educational partners, including yourselves and our district SELPA. County SELPA. The educational partners identified 4 main themes. These remain unchanged from this year's plan moving into next year. So a theme of math improvement, social emotional behavioral and supports, continuing our focus and communicating our plans, as well as continuing to focus on student connectedness and school culture across all of our campuses. In the draft plan, you will see that the district anticipates receiving roughly $6.5 million in revenue for LCFF supplemental funds for next school year. We also are carrying over a little over 400,000 funds. That represents not a change in action. That doesn't mean any actions weren't implemented this year. It just means some of the actions came in less costly than anticipated, and so those carryover funds will be reinvested in the 25-26 school year LCAP. So our total projected expenditures in the plan represented aligned to each action are the combination of those two numbers, so $6.9 million. And then you can see how we anticipate those being broken down by goal area. So roughly $1 million devoted to goal 1, 1.6 devoted to goal 2, and $4.2 million devoted to goal 3. There are also many other funds included in our local control and accountability plan. Our district tries to be very intentional with the way that we share our budget with the community, including all of our educational partners who are part of this plan. And inside of the LCAP in the plan itself, as well as the expenditure tables, you can see all of the funds we're looking to invest by action. Also included and required to be presented alongside the LCAP are the local indicators. These will be published on the California School Dashboard in fall of 2025. We anticipate the dashboard will be released in November this coming school year. The local indicators that are included address state priority areas that don't have state indicators, such as CASP assessments or suspension rates. These are other more specific local indicators that we present on. We write our own narratives and use state-provided rubrics and tools to evaluate ourselves in these areas. You can see in attachments A and B just a summary of our performance on local indicators. I will also bring these and present them alongside the LCAP for action in June. Our draft goals for next year remain unchanged from this year. Our goal around math achievement, social, emotional, mental health, and behavioral supports for goal 2, and maintaining, monitoring, and enhancing existing programs for goal 3. We also have those areas to enhance that remain unchanged in the coming year. So we'll go into a second year of enhancements in the areas of early literacy, attendance, and serving the unique learning needs of students, which includes our students with disabilities and our English learner students, and making sure we're meeting their needs across school settings, but specifically in their general education classrooms where they spend the majority of their time. These next 2 slides represent how all of the expenditures that are supplemental funds, those $6.9 million that were represented earlier in the presentation, how those are broken up specifically by action. And just to highlight a few, you can see that our district will continue to invest in academic supports related to multi-tiered systems of support in mathematics with just about $775,000. When you look in the plan, you will see numbers aligned to each action that are slightly higher than these, because these dollars on these 2 slides only represent supplemental funds, and we're using many funds, many of our district funds, including the general fund and federal funds, to contribute to our actions. This slide shows you goal 3, and then culminating in that $6.9 million. To highlight here, we will continue our technology loan program. Next year, we already have all of our Chromebooks that we seek to loan out to families in need. This particularly identifies hotspots that we are able to loan to our families in need. And just as a reminder to trustees, these hotspots were new that we did in conjunction with T-Mobile, where it is a cellular device that acts as a hotspot, but can also act as a connection point for our families. So it has on it local resources for families, as well as all of our phone numbers for emergency services and school services. So if they need to call in an absence, the phone number for the school is already directly loaded onto that phone, just to try to remove any additional barriers we can for families attending. Continuing to increase services for our unduplicated students, including our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, our foster youth, and our English learner students. Identified all of these increased and improved services earlier in the month of May. These have not changed. However, just to highlight a couple, we will continue to offer designated and integrated English language development. And you can see on the previous slide, the investment in our English learner services is over $1 million for students in Rocklin, as well as the services that they receive in their general education classroom. We'll also continue to provide priority access to all of our intervention programs for socioeconomically disadvantaged students, foster youth students, English learners, and students living in homelessness, and continue to provide case management for our highest needs families. And lastly, next steps related to LCAP development will be to provide ongoing response to educational partner feedback, present the 25-26 LCAP with the budget for board approval on, board action on June 18th, and submit to Placer County Office of Education. Communicate our plan with RUSD families and staff, and provide feedback to advisory committees on the areas that were included in the LCAP. And lastly, continue to implement, monitor outcome data, and report updates regularly to trustees. At this time, staff request trustees hold a public hearing regarding the draft 25-26 RUSD LCAP and authorize staff to make necessary technical corrections that do not change the intent or represent a substantial change to program content.
Let's see, we'll try it again. Thank you so much. Are there any board comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, let's see. I now open the public hearing for the 2025-26 Local Control and Accountability Plan. I don't see any public comments. I now close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the RUSD 2025-26? Do you not need a motion?
Actually, Trustee Price, we incorrectly identified some of the information that this is just to hold a public hearing tonight, and approval will be brought back to the board at the next meeting.
Okay, so no motions. We just held the public hearing, so we're good to move on. Okay.
Yeah, apologize.
Thank you. Appreciate all that you do. Thank you. That was great. Okay, item 9.2. We will ask Jennifer Stahlheber, Deputy Superintendent Business and Operations, to present the 2025-26 district budget and annual certification for workers' compensation claims, and we will follow that with a public hearing.
Good evening, President Price, board members, Superintendent Stock, and those joining us this evening. Tonight, we're here for our public hearing for our adopted budget report, and this is our really nice little fancy illustration of how we move through the year with all of our different interim and budget reports and the different public hearings we're required to have. So I started with some highlights from the May revise. As you know, we shared some of the information from the January governor's proposed 2025-26 budget. Some of those items have changed, one of which is COLA. COLA, we originally had projected at a 2.43%, came in and may revise at 2.30. And that is a calculated COLA that uses data points, so we don't project that this will change by June. The only change that could occur would be if the governor chose not to fully fund it, but we don't expect that to happen. We also saw that the proposed amount for LCFF is going to include deferrals, and so those deferrals will occur in June 2026 and move funds to July 2026. It doesn't impact the amount we receive, but what it does impact is our cash flow. So the state gets to book it as they sent us that money for that year, but we actually receive it a month later after that year. We also saw $2.1 billion and $1.2 billion included. Part of it was for the expansion of the TK program, and the other piece was related to the lowering of the student to adult ratio for our TK program. We also saw that he maintained the proposal to lower the threshold for those districts that qualify for rate 1 for the ELOP program. So that would lower it from 75% to 55%. That does not impact our district because we are below 55, but it could impact the rate 2 amount that we receive. And because we fall in rate 2, we'll be keeping an eye on this. As that grows, we don't believe when we look at the amount that the governor is projecting to shift to that is enough to cover the additional districts that would fall into that category. He also added $200 million one-time funds to support professional learning for elementary educators and literacy instruction. And then there was also the professional development block grant. It was lowered from a projected 1.8 to 1.7. When we look at our 25-26, we're going to talk about what was included and what wasn't. This is one of the items that we did not include. We know that as the governor negotiates with the legislature, they typically look at those one-time dollars for some of their special interest projects or programs. And so until we receive that June budget, we won't be adding that. If it does, if it's included in June and it has a significant impact, we'll be back with the 45-day revise for the board. So if you were able to tune into the school services presentation, you saw this slide that they always include. And they really started including this slide when we saw the PERS and STRS rates were increasing substantially. Gosh, about 10 years, 13, 15, I don't know. It's been a long time. And that used to be one of the lines that was included in this chart. We've removed that because they flattened out. STRS is statutorily defined, and so we don't project any increases to that. And PERS has actually done pretty well and almost at their target for their unfunded liability. And so we're not seeing a lot of growth. It's very minor. So any growth that is in that PERS rate, we're capturing in the step and column piece. But what we want to illustrate here is how when we receive LCFF COLAs, it doesn't always translate to an increase in revenue for a district. Because districts can be funded on the 3 prior years, prior year or current year, you could actually be funded at a lesser amount. And we experienced that in 24-25 because we had been funded off the 3 prior year and we had a high year because of during the pandemic, we had some hold harmless years. And since then, we've had a reduction in our enrollment and our ADA. We were benefiting from that 3 prior year. Well, with those years dropping off, we saw a dip that brought our revenues below what we had received in 23-24. And so this chart illustrates that. We actually received $42 less per ADA in 24-25. And then what is also illustrated here are our expenditures, our fixed cost expenditures that just happen naturally. So step and column is one of those. That happens every year just from natural movement as our employees progress on our salary schedules. Special education contribution has been another area where districts have experienced a lot of growth in recent years. We know that we have several categories that have really grown statewide and nationwide. And so we're seeing the contribution because the federal government and the state do not fully fund special ed. And so as that contribution grows, we have to prepare for it and include it in our multi-year projections. We also include a small inflation factor, which uses the consumer price index, which is another one of those calculated amounts, which really looks at projected growth of the cost of goods and services. And that's a smaller number because a smaller portion of our budget is spent on goods and services. And then insurance, which is another topic we've talked about a lot recently, related to the change in legislation around AB 218, which expanded, and then a subsequent legislation that removed the statute of limitations and allowed folks to submit SAMs or sexual abuse and molestation claims up until the age of 40 or within 5 years of recalling the abuse. And so we've seen a lot of litigation in the state and school districts be hit with this, and it's causing our insurance rates to increase substantially. So we really just wanted to illustrate how even in years that we're getting a healthy COLA or a small COLA, it may not translate to the same amount of new revenue for every district. It really will be unique to our demographics, our enrollment. Do we have more UPP students? Because if you look, one of the things that we included was our supplemental growth, and you can see that in 24-25, our supplemental amount grew by $48 per pupil. But our base growth decreased by 90, so for a net decrease. So we really were making do with our current budget in just doing all those things we need to do, but with no new revenues. And so when you look out in those future years, you can see we're in that same boat. We were conservative in our 25-26 projections, and in those out years, you can see that special education grows at a much larger rate in 26-27 and 27-28. And that's because this year we chose to really look at what we're budgeting now for positions, and we capped it there, along with the growth in our contracted services. But in those out years, we're using our historical trend, which we reduced to 10%, if you recall, this past year, but had been upwards of 15% in prior years. So we're doing a lot. We have an amazing director of special ed who's done a lot working with staff and providing training and working with parents and students, and we really are seeing that impact now in our budget. We hope to see it in those out years, which would drastically change some of the information you'll see in our MYP. But as of right now, you can see our ongoing expenditures greatly outpace our new revenues. And this is a look at our adopted revenues, and you can see we're projecting that growth in our local control funding formula. There's quite a bit of that. That's a piece of the TK expansion that we discussed when we talked about the highlights from the May revise. 1.07 of that is attributable to the TK growth. We also had almost $600,000 in growth in our supplemental dollars, and the rest is related to COLA being applied to the base funding. Our federal revenues, we saw a decrease. The largest part, just under $200,000, is related to our Title I program, but we also saw a reduction in our Carl Perkins program projected for the 25-26 year. Our state revenues, those are related to some grants we received that came through in a state resource and falls in this category. They were one-time grants that we booked in this year, so we know we won't have the opportunity to have those unless they make that a proposal that we can apply for again. And so we've removed it from that projected adopted budget. Our other local revenue, we show some growth there, and that's related to those electric bus grants that we have brought to you, that we've done a really amazing job and been really fortunate compared to a lot of districts. We've grown that fleet, and we've done it all through grants. Right now, I think we still have about $326,000. That would be the district portion for 8 new buses, which is pretty amazing. Those buses cost almost $500,000 a piece. So really good work by our transportation department. And so this is a breakout just showing a pie chart of all of our revenues. You can see the majority of our revenues are derived from LCFF, so almost 80%, just under that. And with a lot of uncertainty at the federal level related to some of the funding that we receive, we're kind of fortunate that we only receive less than 2%. But it still would have an impact. That's $3.5 million, so it's something we're listening for. Some of our federal funds that you don't see in this chart are the nutrition services, the National School Lunch Program, because those sit in Fund 13. And this is really our focus is on General Fund, Fund 01. And that fund, though, has had a surplus with universal meals. But if the federal funds were to be eliminated, that would impact us. And so it would be something we would keep our eye on and probably bring back to discuss with the board. So here's a look at our expenditures. Overall, our expenditures are projected to decrease. A large part of that is certificated. We reduced some of those one-time positions for intervention services because of those funds going away. Overall, the net decrease was 6 FTE because we added TK positions due to the lower ratio. We also eliminated that 3% one-time off salary schedule payment that was made in 24-25, and that's why overall the impact on the certificated salaries is a decrease. But we have the growth in classified and in benefits related to that, again, that expansion of the TK program. Had to add a lot of aides for that second adult, and if you recall, they have additional education requirements to be in that program. Have a question? Okay. Our books and supplies, we did remove some budget from estimated actuals, and we're projecting it's not going to sit in there, and that's because we know we always have carryover. Every year we have carryover, and rather than just going ahead and showing it there. We're going to wait till we know what that number is, and we will bring that back. And at first interim, you'll see that carryover. That's typical. What we realized as we were really doing deep dives into our budget is sometimes that, because we were looking at current year, we were keeping that amount in there, and what we've done is try to back out any carryover until it actually comes in. The same with our services and other operating and our capital outlay. Our capital outlay, you can see, is projected the same, and the majority of that is related to those buses again, and then any projects we have related to routine restricted maintenance. And then this illustrates the breakdown of all of our expenditure categories. When you look at unrestricted and restricted, our salary and benefits is 82.64. If we were to remove our restricted funds, our salary and benefits would be 88.8% of our total unrestricted budget, which is, most districts are between 85, right around 85, 90%. So we're right in there with a typical district. Any other questions? So this is our general fund summary that just looks at, here's our revenues, here's our expenditures, our net increase, decrease, and you can see we're projecting right now a decrease in the current year of 9.1. Over $6 million of that is related to restricted dollars. So the final expending those one-time dollars that came in from COVID. We also have some one-time grants that are in there. And then the other piece of that on the unrestricted side was related to that 3% one-time salary. And that was a planned investment in employees where we used fund balance to compensate employees with the one-time 3%. So that's why looking out in the next year, in 25, 26, you see a decrease, but we do still have a deficit. Again, those are some restricted dollars being spent that were received in prior years and some grants, and about 200 and some odd thousand is related to unrestricted. Very manageable, a negligible amount, but there is a little bit in there for unrestricted. You can see our restricted and committed balances. We had some growth in the committed, and that's because when we get to our MYP, we saw some increased projected deficit, most of it related to our special ed contribution increasing when we use that 10% growth factor, which is part of our trend analysis. And so that increase is what we commit for the deficit spending mitigation. We still have a very healthy fund balance, though, and even with all of our restricted, committed amounts, assignments, and our reserve for economic uncertainty, we're still at projected over 10.44 just unassigned funds. So this is that breakdown of those fund balance components, and you can see we have different categories that increase, the biggest one being the deficit spending mitigation. The majority of them, though, remained flat. Some of our assignments change just based on fund balance at the time that we prepare the documents. These are the planning factors we use when we're doing our multi-year projection. So we use a lot of resources. We use a legislative analyst office or Department of Finance. We also refer to school services, California's DART board, and they also receive that same information from the LAO and DOF. And so this is the data we use to build those projections along with our local trends to try and be as accurate as we can from reporting period to reporting period. So in our MYP, you can see that we are projecting some deficit. In the first year, the majority of it really is attributable to the restricted funds. It does grow in those out years related to unrestricted, and again, as I stated earlier, that's a big piece of that is our special education program. We don't receive enough revenues to cover the services that we provide to students, and so we project a 10% growth year over year, and that equates to about $3 million, 3.3 in that subsequent year. So were that to be reduced to what we have in the current budget, that would significantly decrease that projected deficit and altogether eliminate it in those out years. But until we have a trend that points us in that direction, to be conservative, we go ahead and leave that in there. I'd much rather come back with good news than bad news. And again, you can see we still have a really healthy unassigned amount in our budget beyond the required reserve and all of our commitments. So this is where we look at our other funds. So we have our student activity fund, which is a newer one, GASB change. We're now required to include it with all of our other funds. And we we kind of get that data at an audited actual, so we don't know the activity until we're closing the books, and we'll put that in. We'll start to build trends now that that's a newer fund, and we'll probably have more data as we come in the future. Our cafeteria student nutrition fund, right, as I've shared with Universal Meals, we're seeing really good returns and revenues. We've had a huge increase in our breakfasts that we serve and our lunch program, and so you see we have a large surplus there. Our deferred maintenance fund is where we had set aside funds that help complement our routine restricted maintenance, and so when we're a little short, we can tap into these funds for any deferred maintenance. And then those next couple of funds are really where we're spending for the facility program. The $58 million that trustees approved last April to put in new portables, some grow, some LED lighting, and new HVAC units, which we have a huge project this summer that will be completed, and I'm sure our teachers will be so grateful for. So that's really what's causing those deficits when you see that net activity, because those don't have a lot of revenue coming in, and so that's just going to show a deficit in those. Our Fund 51, that again, we don't get that activity till we close our books, because that is where our GO bonds, the debt service is paid out of that, and it's administered by the county treasurer. And then we have our Mello-Roos debt service and our retiree benefit, which we now have in a trust, in a 119, which is our CERT fund, where we pay for our OPEB. We pre-fund it, so we don't have this large unfunded liability. But that is not recorded here, that sits somewhere else. And these are our next steps. So we're gonna be back at June 18th so that you can adopt this budget. We'll have any changes that may come as a result of action taken on some items that'll be coming up right after this, which may be including some one-time funds for facility, if that is approved tonight, and an additional stabilization account. That would impact those commitments and that fund balance section. We also would submit our budget to Placer County as required to be approved. And then in June, we'll look out for that final state budget and attend the school services conference in July. And then if we see that there are any material changes in the final state budget, we'll be back in August to bring you a 45-day revise. And then we'll see you in September with our unaudited actuals. Never stops.
You're not kidding.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
That was great. Thank you for all the information. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments?
Real quick, just wanted to ask a question. Slide 11, there's a COLA across the top on slide 11, and then there's a California Consumer Price Index. So being a finance person, translate if the Consumer Price Index is higher than the COLA, like projected 25, 26.
So COLA is determined based on a lot of factors, both national and state, and that is what is used to fund our cost of living adjustment and is applied to the programs that sit within the general fund for the state of California, including Prop 98. It doesn't always get applied to all programs that are within Prop 98, but the majority of them. One item, like for note, is this year they didn't apply it to the state preschool program. We don't receive those funds, but in other years it would have received COLA. CPI is a California Consumer Price Index, and it's tied directly to inflation in California for the cost of goods and services. So they will be different ones using national data and ones using California data. And we know we're a really large economy, and our pattern is different than the rest of the nation typically.
But when one is, I guess, it translated, if we assume that the prices in general in California are going to go up approximately 3%, but from a funding of a COLA, it's less than 2.5. There's a makeup factor, and I'm looking at the finance person that's got to find the magic to make that happen, huh? Okay. Crazy. And then on slide 12, unassigned funds, that's, again, those are additional monies looking at it. I think we're talking later about one-time funds for facilities, so projects, things that we could use. Any outside expense or any need above that 10% or 11% or what, moving forward, that would force us to either dip into the economic reserve or go belly up type thing is how I could translate that?
Well, as long as you have fund balance, we also have a lot of components in our commitments that we could tap into as well. So we do commit funds for any deficit spending that's projected. But if we were to establish a stabilization account, I don't know that we would have that need because our deficit spending line this year is under 5 million. I think it's 4 point something. But if we were to add another 3%, that'd be over 5.5. It would more than cover. Plus, we have our state required reserve as well. So if we remove that line, that would actually drop back to that unassigned. Right now, we do commit those funds and have been doing that for multiple years, but we could change that practice with the addition of that stabilization account. We could have changed it before as well at the discretion of the board.
My question kind of adds on to that, but up to slide 9, talking about unassigned REU funds. So under the 24-25 estimated actuals, we see 21 million there, correct? Is that one-time dollars, or is that, I mean, when we're seeing this go through each year, if that's spent now, that's really, we're saying, looking at our budget right now, we have 21 million unassigned one-time dollars. As soon as it's spent, clearly next year it wouldn't show up. So we're not going to see that show up in the out years.
Right, which is why you see a decrease as we move out, because we have some deficit spending in there.
Okay, so that's, because the deficit spending is already in committed, or is it in
we
the
have
unassigned?
It in committed, but we
Okay.
also have it in our budget, which is why if we were to move forward, we could remove that.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
You know, when I first saw that, when I came to Rocklin and saw that we had that line, and being someone who's been in a county office and provided the AB 1200 oversight for school districts and had to approve budgets, I was like, oh, that's really nice, because what that signals to the county office is, if you do have a deficit, you're saying, I recognize it, and I'm committing to spend some of my fund balance to cover it. Even though you already have it in budget, I feel like it's a really good message to the county when they're reviewing your budget, which is why I think if we were to establish a stabilization account, we're sending that same message to them. We are prepared in the event we need funds beyond the state required 3%.
And I know we've been able to have conversations offline, right, about deficit spending, right? Really sometimes there is the unfortunate necessary need of a planned deficit because of how the dollars fall or the grant monies come in, right, or the expenditures hit because of a timing predicament. But it's really that structural deficit that I'm still looking at, that I would love to see us continue to address and look at. But I do know quite often in districts we have planned deficits, right, for periods of time. And so I appreciate how you've laid this out so we can clearly see what unassigned funds we still have available to look at. You know, I am a big proponent of balancing, you know, a few different priorities and needs, right? Really looking at I don't want to have dollars just sitting there that could be used right now. That could be used right now for our facilities, could be used right now for compensation, could be used right now for a variety of priorities and needs. But I also think it's good to talk about some of this economic uncertainty, and I know we're going to do that in a little bit, but I appreciate how you've laid this out so we can see that, that we're really looking at some one-time dollars and what are we going to do with that. So thank you.
Trustees, I'd also add that by the way that the board's given direction, past, present, and I assume future, has been to really make sure that we do commit for any of the deficit pieces we have and allow us to have a mitigation piece that while we want to attend to any deficits and think as we've, as Deputy Superintendent Stahlhuber talked about with our special education, that we also then don't, as Trustee Sadoff said, not spend funds where we need them now because we know we have a healthy fund balance, and that with the state has been, in their approach over the last nearly almost decade now, has been that when they see funds that were owed to public education of Prop 98, they expend some of those in one-time dollars that are multiple-year grants. So we've seen a huge pattern, and the discretionary block grant that Ms. Stahlhuber mentioned is one of those where it's a one-time fund, but it lasts 4 years, and it's worth millions. So that, the way the board's given direction to have that deficit spending and even potentially a stabilization account allows us to look at a deficit in a current year and then look at those large one-time funds and use them over multiple years to allow us to accomplish the goals of the board, and not, you know, not take those into account as we look at all the needs that we have.
Yeah, and I failed to mention there, another piece of the governor's proposal was a repayment of the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant funds that he cut in a previous year. when they had a budget shortfall. And so that would equate to about $244,000 each year in the next 3 years for us. So that's another $750 on top of the estimated $3.4 we would receive in the one-time discretionary block grant funds. So there's potential to over $4 million of additional one-time funds that we would have access to 3 years for the $750 for the learning recovery, and then 4 years for the other grant. Yep. And I did not go to the last slide. Do you have more
No
questions?
problem. Yes, on slide 13, can you, I know you said there's a change, but can you describe to us what the student activity fund is?
It's ASB.
Okay, that's what I wanted. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be sure. Okay.
The official name is student activity.
Okay, so they report that to you at the end of every year, what they've spent out of that. And
We
it just now has to be ran through our budget, and before it didn't? Okay.
It used to be considered a supplemental fund, and now it's considered part of our government funds.
Okay.
And so it's reported differently even in our audit report.
And then, Deputy Superintendent Stahlheber, are all the funds listed on this slide are restricted and can be used only for the purposes identified, such as the cafeteria fund? While they do have a healthy surplus, that can only be used for nutrition services. We couldn't use them to put in playgrounds or to compensate employees. So all these funds are only for the purposes you see here: facilities, nutrition services. ASB, we can't touch those. They stay right with the students that generate them.
All funds outside of the Fund 01, the general fund, are restricted in nature.
Thank you. Okay, let's get to your thank you.
And as you know, I could not do all of this without my amazing team and all of the staff here at the district office and at our sites that are part of building that budget. My team meets with sites and departments and principals and program directors, and they work with us to help really craft. And when we have questions around trends or changes, they really are very helpful. And Hannah and her team are amazing, and all the work she does with the LCAP and our special ed team. So I couldn't do this work without them, so I want to thank them.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer, for your hard work as well. Okay, I now open the public hearing for the 2025-26 district budget and annual certification for workers' compensation claims. I now close the public hearing. Okay, item 9.3. Jennifer, will you please continue with action on revised board policy 3100 budget?
Right, so on May 7th, we brought forward a revision to our board policy 3100 budget, and we included some new language. We made most of the revisions really just to bring it up to date with the current CSBA recommended board policy, but we also added language regarding a stabilization account. And so if you recall, I had prepared a presentation where we looked at different amounts. We had 4, 5, 6, we ran some scenarios, and I think in the end, it was requested that we go ahead and put 3%. We had an X in there originally in the policy, waiting for board direction. We've now updated it with the 3%, and it's here for you to approve or not approve.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the revised board policy 3100 budget? I guess is its single name, budget, okay.
So moved.
First by trustee Hub,
Second.
second by trustee Sutherland. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes.
Jarrett Counter.
Yes.
Julie Hupp.
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland.
Yes.
Rochelle Price.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, will you please continue with action on resolution 242533, committing funds for one-time district safety and facility projects?
Yes. And so I don't know if you noticed, but I've been calling my presentations on this, part 1, part 2, part 3. So I think this is the final in the series of sequels. But this is our one-time school facilities projects. And so this was, we looked at proposed projects, we looked at allocations, some different methodologies, and now we're going to look at what that does in our projected fund balance and our commitments, and then we're going to talk some program parameters and components. So some of the items we looked at is right off the top, we want to commit funds for safety. We know we just had a safety assessment, and we're going to have a report right after I'm done up here, and we want to commit some funds to be able to take action on some of the recommendations. We also sent some surveys to site principals to get some of their wants and needs, and we compiled that and shared that. And so some of the main items we saw were shade structures, playground equipment, scoreboards, marquees, and so that would be part of that plan. If you recall, we looked at multiple allocation methodologies. So we looked at by site, we looked at a by site with unduplicated pupil percentage, we looked at a by site age, site type with the UPP add-on, and then what we settled on was by site, ADA, age, and site type with the UPP add-on. So we kind of hit all of those pieces and went with scenario D. As we worked on it, and I'll bring this up quickly, we had some amounts in there. Oops, if it opens for me. And if you recall, the final allocation came to the 7.15 million, which would come out of fund balance and would be a commitment moving forward until those funds were spent. And that off the top safety amount was 1.5 million. And so originally I had shared our projected fund balance, and this is what it looks like it adopted, what we just brought. And this is with the additional 7.150 commitment for the one-time facility project. And so I prepared that previous slide to just show what that would look like. So in our adopted budget, removing that additional amount would bring our unassigned reserve to 6.47. So very healthy, and as you can see, we have a lot of funds committed for deficit spending mitigation. We also have it for our aspirational target for our ADA rate. We're still trying to get to the pre-COVID 96.5, but we're over 95.6, so we still put that difference as one of our commitments as well. So we still have a really healthy balance.
Great question. Is the stabilization shown on this?
This is not in here yet since it had not been board approved.
Okay, so if the stabilization is 3% and then reserve for economic uncertainty is 3%, then
that one is already in here. The reserve
but when you see the 6%, that the 6.47 means we're essentially 0.47 over both of those, or has one of those already been taken into consideration?
The regular state required reserve is already in here. So if we added the additional 3, that would bring it down to 3.47 of unassigned funds.
Got you. Thank you.
Okay. So one of our topics is program parameters and timeline. So this would be, once the board approves, we would work to put together the parameters, that timeline. I'm sure it would be our facilities and our ed services partners really working out what would be a really great streamlined methodology to bring that in so that we can provide quotes, get us in queue for DSA if required for the projects, and get this moving. I know the board would really like to see this done in 2 years. Because we're approaching summer, we think we can do it in 2 calendar years, not necessarily 2 fiscal years, because there is a wait with DSA to get projects approved. And with all of the bond programs that are going right now in the state allocation board is releasing funds very frequently right now. We know that there'll be a significant line, and especially because we're hitting summer when there are a ton of projects in the state for school districts. So when we really started backwards mapping, Craig and I, we were like, ooh, I don't know, 2 fiscal, but we think we can get it done in 2 calendar years. So our proposal is the 2 calendar years, but to come back and do periodic reports to the board to let you know our progress, what has been done, what we still have ahead of us, and then any other parameters you'd like us to include.
Just a comment on the timeline. I appreciate that. We want to be realistic, and so I appreciate the explanation behind that. I do think some of these, especially when we start talking about a little bit more the specifics of our safety projects and some of our facility needs. I know that we were able in our previous board study session to hear a little bit more about playgrounds and some of those being updated, and that those would be in a it sounds like a shorter time frame. But just wanted to make a comment on that of I appreciate the planning that goes in and that the execution of projects. I don't want to make you nervous. I recognize why we have these dates on here. I just want to put a little ping on it, that, we have students that are moving through our campuses every weekday, and these kids are growing older, and I would love to see us really prioritize, especially our safety and some of our physical campus projects that are the equipment that our kids are touching every day. I'd love to see our students on our campuses now getting to use those rather than, allowing some delays to push that out multiple years.
And trustees, we would, our recommendation that we talked about too is that we see the $7.1 million kind of bifurcated, the largest amount going to schools per the allocation method the board discussed to get input with their stakeholders and move as quick as we can on those items. And then the 1.5 million is that kind of first investment in the safety to implement the recommendations from our safety assessments, and we would plan to come back to the board early fall, with recommendations on how to expend those funds so that we move quickly on those as well. We, want to be thoughtful in that. We know the board wants us to, but we also know we want to move immediately to begin addressing needs too. So we see a kind of a two-track process on getting those funds expended and moved out as quickly as possible.
Jennifer, do you happen to have the slide that shows what we ended up talking about at the end of our study session, that dollar amount, and how much each school would get? Okay, so I want to just be clear, when we vote for this dollar amount, are we still, I apologize if I didn't have it in the attachment. Okay, are we approving the dollar amounts as we had them?
Yes, and that item's attached to the board docs.
Correct.
So
Okay.
if you,
I'm sorry, I don't have,
yeah,
our screens aren't working up here
Move
tonight.
the presentation and go to the board doc attachment.
Okay.
So exit.
It is in the attachment.
Yeah, but
Okay.
if they want
Can I
to
do
put, they
that
want to
from
put,
here?
yes, you can. You can exit the presentation mode and then go into that attachment. And so that, because what we actually put this in there because we knew the board wanted everyone to know these are the amounts per school that are approved. Here's how those amounts were derived. Here was the allocation methodology that was discussed at our study session. And so that's why that item is attached here as
Okay,
well. But we
I
think it's
appreciate that.
good for you all to see that, and if you have any clarification or adjustments you'd like.
Okay, I just have a change that I'd like to put forward, but maybe we'll give it just a minute. Thank you. Thank you. So I apologize again, our screens aren't working up here, so I didn't have that right in front of me, but I do still want to throw this out to my colleagues. I had a couple more conversations with principals regarding matching, and I would like to suggest that we give a small amount available to all sites. I'm going to throw out $10,000, and the reason being is that I think it shows our community and our sites that we want to partner with them. And so we are asking our families and our parent clubs to give a lot, and I think matching a small dollar amount just shows them that we are partners with them and we appreciate the work that they're doing.
Can I ask, do you mean on top of the money that's here, so adding 10,000 to each school?
Did we play with it earlier, Jennifer, in a different way, or was it a cell that we had in and we took out?
We discussed that we felt that the unduplicated pupil percentage was a piece of the allocation that we're going to help support those sites that maybe don't receive as many funds through community donations, and that is tiered based on their unduplicated pupil percentage. So we didn't include just a per dollar or per site dollar amount.
Okay.
If we did it for the sites and not the programs.
Just the site, so that would be what, 170,000? Yeah. I think it's important, and just
So
wanted
making
to
sure
throw
I
it out.
understand, that would be on top of these allocations, correct? Because I do still feel very strongly that I don't want sites to have to do anything to be able to access these funds. I don't want to delay these funds.
Me either.
As it is, I want there to be site discretion for utilizing the funds, and I recognize that might take a little time in the fall for them to fully identify and meet with their stakeholders. on their campuses, but I don't want there to be any delay in the allocation of these funds, such as they need to, find matching dollars. So what I'm hearing is this would be separate from an additional 10,000 you would like to give to each campus for them to receive once they've raised 10,000 for a project?
Yes. So they have the opportunity to raise 10,000 and we will match that. So as we've talked to these parent clubs, they're saying, wow, it'd be really great if you could work with us. We're working really hard on our end. Could the district work with us? So I think it would be on top of, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, because at UPP, it goes up in increments of 25,000, what we could do is make the first one 15, the next one 40, the next one 65, the next one 90. There would still, which would release 10,000 per site. That would be the matching funds without increasing the entire commitment. And then we wouldn't have to revise the resolution. But I would just change that piece on the allocation methodology if the board likes that direction.
But that would lessen the amount that they're automatically getting, though.
Only by 10,000. But then those funds would be set aside for their matching.
Is this something that a principal could do within their site budget on their own discretion based on what their PTC is doing and what they maybe are already fundraising for? I think my concern is just us as a board trying to manage that and a timeline of when do they have to raise it by, when we're already providing this amount. Like, is a principal able to set something like that up with their own PTCs?
I think they already currently do that sometimes with their own site allocations when their PTCs are raising funds for a specific thing or want or need that they have. A lot of our sites have really healthy PTCs that are very amazing and raise a lot of funds. And I think that really was one of the drives, because I believe it was Trustee Satoff in the original study session that asked if we could include funds that addressed donations and the unduplicated pupil percentage, which I was trying to capture in that. So, I mean, I could leave it as is and we just add 170 in total, or we could take it there if we want to keep our total investment in this. But it will logistically be a lot of work for, the matching funds, what the program is. Is it going to be partially funded by, like, we're going to do 10,000 of this 80,000 project and then tap into the other 10,000 in matching funds? But whatever the board directs,
I'm
we'll
definitely
figure it
not
out. We're
trying
smart.
to, I talked to Superintendent Stock. I'm definitely not trying to add any extra workload to you, but I also think it's really important that we partner with our families.
no,
Superintendent Stock, what was your thought?
I was wondering, and this is just a clarification, if this is the direction the board wants to go, would it be just PTCs, or would you consider like a booster club? Would, the boosters would be allowed to, act, if they were to raise the money, they'd access, because at our high schools, for example, the boosters may be the group that does some matching work and not a PTC for something like this. So is it just in sense either booster or PTC would qualify?
I think it's per site. I think we could work out, some of those details and how they want to divide it up. I think the goal is that we are, again, partnering with them and showing our appreciation for the donations that our families give.
Right, because what we want to, because we heard the strong encouragement to move as quick as we could, we want to brief principals next, on June 11th at our closeout district leadership team meeting on, okay, the board took some action, here's the parameters, plan for August to begin engaging. So that's why clarifying these details help give us that direction as well.
I'm open to the idea. I would love to see it be separate, though. I really want to be careful that we're not delaying a release of these funds. And I think we have some campuses that will have the ability to raise and match those funds quickly, and there'll be some campuses that, just because of the nature of the makeup of their community that they serve, they're going to struggle with that. And so I don't want this to feel like a penalizing in any way. I hear the positive benefit of it, of encouraging support from the community and our families, and I love that. So I'd be open to it if there's a way that it's structured, that it's very clear that this is separate from these dollars that are set aside. Because I do really want to make sure there's no confusion after tonight that these dollars aren't delayed in being expended, that there's no additional action that needs to be done on behalf of a parent to earn these dollars. It was really important to me. I really believe these are taxpayer dollars that we have already received for our schools, and I want to make sure they go directly to our schools without any delay on that. So as long as we're able to be very clear in our write-up, I'm open to the additional $170,000 for a separate program I'm hearing. But to be clear again in the minutes, I would like to see this be allocated to the school sites without them having to take any action other than interest with their stakeholders and decision-making, which I'm hoping could be done expeditiously in the fall at the latest.
I agree.
To be allocated in an account that they would submit, their plans and that. Right.
Sorry, let me be clear. I recognize you're not writing a check to every campus. Let me be clear. When I say allocation, I mean I don't want there to be a holdup of action that needs to be happen or fundraising that needs to be happen before steps can be taken for requests for expenditures to happen.
So I think just looking at it, and I like the recommendation, I think modifying that UPP takes that add-on number down to about 780. Just quick, I mean, you're 950 to minus 170. Yeah, I'm just saying, so that rolls. And then I think just from a financial standpoint, the site totals would change minimally. And then if you added another column on the other side of matching things, the site totals would still be, I think, available as soon as we say yes, go, et cetera. And then the potential matching funds, that 10 per site, would be available also. So it's almost like you have two accesses, you have two accounts. You have the site totals that you get, and then you'd have this other 10.
Correct.
Yeah, but I'm rolling with 7-1 just because it's there.
Wait, so explain, we are making a change to the UPP.
So there's UPP percentages.
To cover this?
Yeah,
170?
all I'm saying is just modify that down to where you basically pull the 170 out of the add-on column.
So we're staying at the 7.
It'll say it's 715
Okay.
or 7.2 or whatever.
Great, thank you.
And
So
I would just say, I believe that every single school's PTC or booster group could match 10,000 over a 2-year period. So I do think that, I don't know that it would prohibit anybody moving forward. And in some of these projects, like to execute a shade structure, every single site would have enough funds allocated to do that, even if they didn't have the matching right away. So I do think it wouldn't prohibit projects that people want to start on immediately because of that match incentive.
And some sites likely have projects they're already planning with their PTCs that they would be able to access those immediately.
And that was going to be my question. So for sites that are maybe already currently working on a project with their PTC to raise funds, these don't have to be additional projects. They can choose how to utilize this $10,000 match. I do like the beauty of that this goes directly to working with their PTCs or their booster club, whereas the other dollars might be site-specific decisions made by the site leadership and the staff, whereas $10,000 can go directly to supporting the great efforts of our PTC. So that I can definitely support as long as it's written up clear. Whether it falls within this mechanism or in addition, I'm good with the majority of the board, how they feel on that.
So I feel like if we put it on here, we don't have to do anything separate. We don't have to have a separate vote. We don't have to bring it back. But if we put it on here, just as an added column, then we can continue on and vote on this tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then what I can do is follow up with the board communication showing the new allocation methodology, just with that additional column as trustee Counter stated, and show you those amounts, which wouldn't change the overall amount. It's just 10,000 would be earmarked specifically for matching funds.
And then who would be in charge of that?
I would work in partnership, with my facilities and my educational services partners. We're a good team, so get it done.
Yeah, and we would, like I said, begin rolling this out to principals June 11th at their meeting of, here's the amounts, here's the engagement, here's the intent of the board in these projects. We would then come back to them at our end of July kickoff. You can see we don't spend a lot of time off. And work to say, okay, here's the way you submit the projects, here's the pieces. So we'd make them aware. We want them to enjoy a little bit of summer. When they come back in July, we'd work to have the methodologies so they could begin getting input from their stakeholders in August, September. and then move. And then I know Craig's mentioned in the study session that if we get like 7 schools that want shade now, that he can work to bundle those, to expedite those through DSA, get better pricing. So we will work with schools as we talk about this to say, okay, if you want this and you know now, let us know and we can move faster. So we'll come up with all that over the summer if we have a board approval so that we can begin working on this.
I would love to see a simple methodology for accessing the funds, something that, doesn't require any onerous paperwork or procedures.
Yeah, I think we already have a form for filling out for additional projects. So I think we already have some resources that we can just tweak for our needs, and then creating the account code to track this is very easy for us.
Great.
I have 2. First is a comment, and then I have a recommendation. I do want to, I know you highlighted in your slide, but I do really appreciate the work that went in on the last board study session to really try to come up with dollar amounts that addressed a variety of areas, right? And so I just wanted to call those out loud for those not reading every one of those columns, right? Like, it was really important that we look at some campuses have different ages, right? And so their needs are going to be vastly different if they're 2 years old as opposed to 70, right? We have different site types, elementary students as opposed to middle school, high school. We have our enrollment, our number of actual students that are being served on those campuses, and even our unduplicated pupil count, right? Our needs-based families, right? Like, so that was a hard thing to grapple, and what weighs more, and I really appreciate that I felt like the board struck a really beautiful balance of balancing all of those things and saying, hey, a campus that is older in years might have more needs, but it might also be serving a different population group that has different needs. And so thank you for working with us, Jennifer, to really try to come up with a formula that addressed each of those areas. So I really appreciate that. I did want to just throw out for the board, I don't know that we necessarily need to amend the resolution, but I was in conversation with Superintendent Stock, and I wanted to bring it to the board. I had some staff reach out based off of some of the conversation we had at our board study session, and I really liked the approach they were taking. They were hearing kind of what we were talking about as far as what's the goal of the board in doing this, right? And I think we all said we want to see site discretion. We do not want to cherry pick projects for campuses. We want our staff to be able, and our parents to be able to, and even students, be able to address what are the needs of their campus and how do they want to use their dollars. I will say with that, I do think giving some priority from the board could be beneficial. Specifically, I know I kept seeing it come up, a need for shade, and specifically our elementary campuses, their playgrounds. I know some of them are already in process to get new playgrounds. Some may have just put in shade structures or already in process to get shade structures. So I am in no way saying that I want us to handpick projects for each campus. However, I really do think it's important that we as a board say, we do have an expectation that there are a few basic areas that are addressed on campuses. And if they're already addressed, great. If they're already being in the process of being addressed, great. I just would love to communicate, if you are in agreement, that there is a desire, at minimum, that shade for every single campus is addressed, some version of shade. And additionally, playgrounds, updated, safe, engaging playgrounds for our children to play on. These are 2 areas that are touch points every single day to all of our students on our elementary campuses. And so, I was kind of tossing back and forth. Do we need to amend the resolution to include those? I don't feel I need to, but I would like to communicate that I'd love to see those 2 areas addressed as they're having these conversations. Do my colleagues feel the same?
I think definitely having it be addressed, like if the principals know that's something to bring forward to their community, still it would be a community decision, but have it in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think by default, from talking to principals, for those sites, and I know some are in worse shape than others as far as shade goes, it's already been identified. They have parents that they've been talking to. So I don't think that, sending, some kind of communication that is a priority and something, I think it's based on the feedback, it's going to happen. So I think that's totally sound. And I want to echo too, I do think this was so helpful. It made the study session so efficient. I feel like we've really got such quality time to really weigh out all of the different factors that make sense for the school site, so that even our newer sites still, you know, making sure kind of that shade structure price point was still a possibility, even on sites that maybe don't have as much needs due to aging and things of that nature. So, you know, if I'm in favor, if it's a priority, I hesitate to make it a requirement, just because I think there are sites that already have it. There are some who are already working to raise, and I just think they will work that out. But it doesn't hurt to kind of let them know where our intentions are.
Yeah, I think I think that would be, I would assume every principal, especially elementary, probably already has that magic list of if I ever won the lotto, and I would assume that shade structures, playground equipment, kickballs, supplies, I'm sure there's a few copiers. I mean, I'm sure they already have an ongoing list of things. So I would hope that as they engage the community and engage their PTCs, if I'm a principal, I would walk in and say, here's all the things I'm thinking of. What do you guys have? And probably have a few sessions of whiteboard and good and bad and pros and cons and let it roll. I would hope that, those are on there. I don't, again, as Michelle was saying, I don't want to prioritize it for them, but I would assume that those things are already on their list, because I'm sure you've had conversations and we've seen it. I mean, I know that at Sunset Ranch back in the day, that was a hot topic, and they rallied there, so maybe it's not on theirs, but I'm sure when money shows up, I'm sure someone could say, hey, maybe we should have shade over here, or do this, or change the playground equipment. Yeah.
I agree. I think that their needs are rising. We could see when they answered for us that those needs are there. I think that they're not having it in front of me, out of the 13 elementaries, were there a few that didn't have that maybe a one-on-one conversation would be good? Like, hey, I noticed a lot of the other sites have this as a priority, a one-on-one conversation with the principal. Are you considering this? I know a lot of families are interested or concerned. That's a thought, versus writing a board letter. I'm not sure what you had in mind, but.
Oh, and let me be clear. I wasn't meaning a letter to go out or communication to go out. More just a conversation tonight. Yeah. That the hope and intent is that there are so many needs, and man, it was exciting to be able to allocate these dollars, and I feel like it feels exciting. But it was also, we saw just how heavy and vast the needs were. That this is really just a drop in the bucket, right, compared to everything that's really needed on our campuses. And so, as I continue to see just such vast needs. And just in follow-up conversations with some that had heard about the board study session, then follow-up conversation with Superintendent Stock, there was just an encouragement that, maybe the board communicating that there is a desire that as these dollars now provide an opportunity to open up these conversations, that, that there is a request that campuses address shade and play structures. If they're already being addressed or already have been addressed, then great, then these dollars may not be needed for that. But if those two areas haven't been addressed yet, it is appropriate at times for the board to say, we want to make sure all of our students on all of our campuses have safe spaces. And so those are two areas that are really important. So I was more just thinking tonight, Superintendent Stock, I told him I don't think it needs to be anything formal, but just communication from the board of that is a desire tonight, just in the minutes, to see that shade and play structures are addressed by campuses, how they choose to address them.
Perfect. I gotcha. Thank you.
And in reviewing the surveys from principals, we did ask principals to give us, kind of that, if I won the lottery list on this. Every single elementary school mentioned shade or playgrounds in their lists as I'm looking at it. And they had a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah.
But
thank you so much. Okay, can we call for a motion? Are we clear on, if I call for a motion, can it reflect the change with matching funds?
The resolution has the total dollar amount, and so that would be allocated. And then what Ms. Stahlhuber will do is update the board via board communication of the new amounts.
Perfect. Okay, great. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 242533, committing funds for one-time district safety and facilities projects?
So moved.
Ooh, it's a toss-up. First by Trustee Sadoff, second by
Second.
Trustee Sutherland? Okay, I got you. Got you both. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Tiffany Sadoff,
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes.
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Rochelle Price.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. We appreciate you, and I'm so glad that you heard how much we enjoyed the time that you spent in that study session. It was so helpful and so fun. I joked that night that we kind of felt like it was Christmas for these sites, so it's kind of fun to play Santa Claus for once. Yeah. Okay, item 9.5, Marty Flowers, Associate Superintendent in Secondary Education, will now present action on district adoption of world language for Spanish 3.
Marty, you lost your translation expert.
I checked with him when I ran
Okay,
his nameplate
perfect.
out. So, President Price, Trustees, Superintendent Stock, I come before you this night to talk a little bit about Spanish. This is going to look very familiar, as you've seen this a couple times. Just a quick overview. Adoption process, the state of California comes out on a regular basis with frameworks. That typically is around 8 years. You know, state of California might be a little behind in that. From that, the publishers take that, they match their curriculum to those frameworks, and then school districts do the same. Here's a lengthy timeline, because once again, if you see to the far left, the State Board of Education approved the standards in January of 2019. The frameworks came out in July of 2020, and then we went to work. And unfortunately, at the time, the publisher that we were looking at and selected did not have level 3. So we adopted last year levels 1 and 2. They finished up level 3, and that's the work that we did. So with that, we went through the committee. 1 day is dedicated to those standards and frameworks, and then 2 days diving into that. Once again, we identified a curriculum that we want to pilot. We go through that process in the fall of 24 and the spring of 25. We evaluate that. We talk to the teachers. We get student feedback. And then through the process, we also follow board policy 6161.1, making sure that we have parents on that committee. This committee, we had parents from Whitney and Springview. With that, the adoption recommendation is according to our student rep, Vosses. So, Vosses? Okay, that's my bad. In my brain, I say Vosses. Bill's over there saying no. I was going to put Braden on the thing, but he didn't do it. The most important part is the asterisk there, Spanish 1 and 2. Again, you guys approved last year. So with that, we still have to go through the public review process. We created a website to collect parent feedback. Digital access to the curriculum is available on our district website, and we made sure we informed parents of that availability. And then through the process, trustees may or may not received any feedback from that. Next steps, if the curriculum recommendation is approved, we will order these resources and support student learning experiences. That'll be delivered to the site, so we're ready to go. We'll provide that professional development on that curriculum for the Spanish teachers, and then provide ongoing support. And I went through this quickly, and I know my colleague and friend and her husband, Mrs. Amanda Bannister and Tony Bannister are watching. Just a huge shout out. Amanda does a great job of this, and just amazing the work she's able to do. So I apologize for missing that shout out. Sorry, Amanda. So with that, staff recommends that we approve the Spanish 3 curriculum.
Thank you so much. Are there any board comments or questions?
Yeah, I assume when we approve, when would the kids or our students have the text?
We would order it ASAP, hopefully get it in. All right, that sometimes is a challenge, and then we'll start the year off. We have those professional development days. We'll provide that training and then get right into it.
So fall of 25, we could see this in
We'll be
practice?
using this in the fall at some point. Maybe not the first day of school, but at some point we'll be using
Excellent.
this.
Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the district adoption of world language for Spanish 3?
So moved.
First by Trustee Hupp.
Second.
Second by Trustee Counter. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Tiffany Sadoff,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Rochelle Price.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Oh, we should have.
Start over.
I know, our Spanish. Okay,
preparing
Marty,
for
will
the
you
next
please
one.
continue with the district safety update, school and district safety assessments?
President Price, Trustee, Superintendent Stock. I come before you this evening to talk about the safety assessments. A little background, in 2024, Rocklin Unified partnered with the Homeland Security to do these assessments. Unfortunately, due to staffing issues, they were only able to complete 4 of those, and then credit to the board, they said, no, this is a must. So we went out and we hired a consortium training and consulting to complete the other 14 sites, including our 18 through 22-year-old program, because we want to ensure the safety of all students. With that, tonight joining us is CEO Jeff Solomon. He is here to present a high-level overview of those assessments. And as Superintendent Stock mentioned earlier, we will be taking all these assessments, breaking that down, and working together with maintenance, working with our IT and ed services to present a 3 to 5 year plan early next fall.
Thank you.
With that, I invite CEO Jeff Solomon.
Mr. Solomon, thank you for waiting for so long.
Oh, no, absolutely. I heard that you guys always save the best for last.
It's true. It's true. We're ready for you.
Sincerely appreciate
Yep.
that.
Perfect. Thank you.
We tested this out earlier, but you know the rule. Oh, we're good. All right, so I appreciate the opportunity, President Price, trustees, and Superintendent Stock, to address the board on the TVRAs, the Threat Vulnerability Risk Assessment. So I've met a couple of you before in the Safety Committee, but just a little background on who I am up here presenting to you. I spent 30 years in law enforcement and retired August 1st of 2020, not that I'm counting the days back or anything. I worked 30 years in law enforcement. I started with Placer County Sheriff's Department. Then the rest of my time was all spent in what I'll call educational law enforcement. I did about 13 years with the school district police department where I became the chief of police. Then I went on to the state university police department. I've also been consulting for about 22 years, primarily in the educational space. You know, when I was in college, I had this, problem of whether I wanted to be a teacher or a policeman. So I kind of split the baby and worked in the educational environment. I went out and got a part-time teaching credential so I could work in some voc ed with some after-school programs, and it was kind of a great opportunity for me, liking both fields. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Tonight, as Mr. Flowers had mentioned, this will be just more of a high-level overview. I always say this because there's always somebody in the crowd, although it's at the end. Nothing I'm going to be talking about is giving away any secret sauce, nothing anybody could take away and use against us in any shape or form. I also just want to make kind of a general statement. Although we make our living from doing consulting in schools, schools are extremely safe places to be. So I want to get that message on the record that I'm more concerned about us driving to and from school than actually, spending a day on a campus or sitting with all of you here tonight. Our schools are extremely safe places. And I think that gets lost a lot of times with the media when an event happens. That said, we have to be prepared for some of these low probability events or black swan events that occur and day-to-day issues that come up. So that's why we prepare and train and do all the things that we do. A little bit about our company's philosophy that's aligned with national best standards, the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, U.S. Department of Education, and state governments, is the idea of a layering. People ask you, how do you protect a school district? How do you protect a school? There's not any one thing that I'll recommend, right? Not a fence, not a camera, not just training. It's all of these things combined. So real quickly, just so we kind of all are on the same sheet of music, is, I want to make sure that a district has really good policies and procedures. So those are going to be things like our comprehensive school site safety plans, having emergency guidebooks or wall flip charts, things that we can train our employees on, and things that we can use for actual emergencies. Like, we don't want to take a 300-page book out in the middle of a critical incident to try to flip through that and run. So again, policies and procedures. I want to make sure that we're doing good planning for our district. I want to make sure that, we all know that we live in California, a central Northern California area, that we are prone to wildfires, we're prone to earthquakes, we're prone to flooding, and large-scale criminal events. So we want to make sure we're doing all the things to make sure that our students and staff and visitors are safe.
Obviously, training's a major component to this, making sure that all of our stakeholders, our executive team, even, one of the biggest groups that gets left out of training is all of you, so that you know what your part is in the emergency process, all the way down to cabinet level, principals, and then the other groups that get left out are, students and parents and guardians, so that parents and guardians have an idea of what their role is should something happen on one of our campuses. And then lastly, physical security, and this is in no particular order of importance. But the idea here is all of these things combined really make up that layering effect. So that if we have any one single point of failure, these other areas will overlap and hopefully help mitigate this. I just want to pause and mention a couple of things. My experience, I was the project lead on this. There were other members that were here with us, but I was the one that kind of ran this project. And I just wanted to point this out because it doesn't always happen. I've worked with districts from New York City Public Schools to LA Unified to Oakland, Sacramento, all over the country. We have a footprint in almost all 50 states. And one of the things I can say is I've done about 100 TVRAs around the country. Nobody is super psyched, as my daughter says, to see my team show up to do a vulnerability assessment, right? It's kind of one of those necessary evil things. You want it done, but it's not a real great experience. From working with the superintendent and the amount of work that I did with Mr. Flowers here, I can say that the access that I got here was exceptional. And again, that's not always the case, so I like to point that out. It makes my job a lot easier, and it makes the results, a lot better. A lot of the time, I'll be out on going out and doing one of these TVRAs, and I'll have a member of cabinet kind of following me around, shadowing, listening, directing conversations. I got basically, as much access as I wanted, which was wonderful. The other thing was, I'll just point out some of the leadership mindset. Whether the site administrators were told to stay with me the whole day or they did it on their own, not one of them left. That's kind of unprecedented. Normally, I'll say sometimes I'll show up and do an assessment, or one of my consultants will, and we'll get introduced to the principal, and then they'll hand us off to a custodian to do this assessment. And that really shows me right off the bat the commitment to safety, right? I know how busy these administrators are, so I can tell you all 14 of these stayed with us the entire day, the entire time, answered follow-up emails, phone calls from me, and actively participated in that. So I sincerely appreciate that and wanted to point that out. Just real quickly, what a TVRA is. It evaluates physical security features, emergency operation plans, employee training, and emergency planning. Again, we started these 14 TVRAs January 24th of this year. What this really means is that we went out to all 14 sites, boots on the ground when we go out. And before we even get out there, I asked Marty to have the principal Mr. Flowers send me all of the emergency documentation to review before we get there. So we're looking, again, we want emergency operation plans. We want to see things like the comprehensive school site safety plan, anything they have related to emergency materials we want to review before we get there. So normally what I get is 14 principals sending me, like 100 documents, and Valerie in the office has to put those all together. Instead, what I got is a really neat document with all these things embedded in it, which made our job, a lot easier. And it also shows kind of the level of commitment for safety here. The other thing that we do is we'll start off with these TVRAs and do about a 2-hour interview of the principal. We have a standardized kind of a document that we go through. We ask the same question several times. It's not a real pleasant thing to have somebody kind of digging through. And every single campus that I go to, every district that I go to, there's gonna be vulnerabilities. That's not a sign of failing to do your job or anything like that. I can find vulnerabilities at most campuses that I go to. It's kind of what we do with that information once it's presented to you is how I measure a district, right? We've had to switch our roles as administrators to be now safety focused beyond just being educational focused. And then lastly, part of this process, I do about a 2 to 4 hour walkthrough of the sites with the administrator and a member of the facilities team. What I'm looking for when I'm doing these reviews is we're looking at the physical security. Again, we're asking questions about employee training, emergency planning, and policies and procedures. And just so we're all kind of on the same page, when I talk about physical security, I'm talking about things like fences, lighting, cameras, things that deter people from coming to your campus. Employee training is pretty obvious. It's going to be having people in seats getting trained. One of the things I like to point out is there's a difference between drills and training. Drills are not training. And a lot of times I'll ask an administrator, what do you do for training? And they'll point out all the drills that you're doing, all right? You know, we train and then we go out and practice them doing the drills, right? So there's a big difference with that. Emergency planning, you look at a campus, if you're settled next to Interstate 80 or a railroad line, you're at high risk for a hazardous material spill. We've seen it, you know, in Lincoln and some of the other areas with some of the train cars and freeways. So we want to make sure our schools are prepared for whatever is around them geographically that they need to be prepared for. And also just being in California, we know. And then lastly, policies and procedures and going through those. You know, again, comprehensive school site safety plans, emergency operation plans, and some of the guidebooks and other things that they have. So that's what we're looking at in totality. What I'm going to just talk about today before I open it up to any questions is the top 3 areas of concern that we found when we presented this executive summary. I'm very open and honest with this, so you know, I'll welcome any thoughts. But let me just lay out the top 3 things. I'm not going to get into great detail here in a public forum, but employee training, candidly, was an area that we need to improve upon. Everything from, you know, teaching or making sure that our employees understand FERPA, Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, to understanding alarming and concerning behavior, active shooter response, all hazard response. I want to see a 2 to 5 year training plan, I think, for the district. You know, what I don't want is us to respond when something bad happens in the community and, you know, have to scramble to find training. I want to have a plan that every employee does that gets negotiated out. So whether the principal stays or the board comes and goes, there's continuity of business and that this plan gets followed and it gets budgeted over time. So employee training. Next will be our emergency notification systems. Another area of weakness for us. Most campuses rely on their PA system, which are activated by the phones. And most of the PA systems work well. There's a few campuses that have some dead spots that the principals are aware of and they're working on, and especially now with me coming out there. I want to see redundancy in this. If you look at any after-action report after any shooting or weather-related hazard on a school, one of the first things that you'll see is that communications always fails. So I want to make sure that we have built-in redundancy for communications. How do we alert people, not just people on campus, but people off campus? One of the problems that we found with your PA system is that most campuses you have to dial in from your phone, and a lot of them had to be done in the front office. So they have to go stand in the center of the front office and grab a phone, or if they're happen to be in the back. And if that's where the problem is, and that's where somebody's hunting people or doing something bad, that could be a real problem of getting that alert out in a timely manner. So looking at leveraging software to do alerts from your phone. So if you're in a lockdown barricade and you're hiding in a closet, that the principal could get on a phone and get that lockdown out and not have to, you know, go out in the open and go to a phone system. Also, how we notify parents or other stakeholders. I want to make sure that we're not just relying on our chief of communications, that we have others, and maybe even think about doing it from school pace. We should be at about the 20-minute mark for letting parents know that something's going on, making sure that we have things like holding statements ready to go, ready to drop. And there has been a lot of good work in this area. I think there's some room for improvement at the campus level so that those messages can go out. What we have found, having been a police officer on a campus and being involved in a number of critical incidents, including an active killer, is that it's very hard for an individual to get from the district office to that site to be able to help with that stuff. So having that site, having some of that capability to notify parents in a timely manner is extremely important. And then lastly, before I open it up to any questions, is just the overall openness of our campuses. I want to be clear here that I'm not advocating for fences. It's very different. What I'm advocating for here is limiting the number of entry and exit points to our campuses. We always do things with purpose. What I didn't hear from the administrators is that we have a real trespassing problem. What I'm concerned about is opportunities for criminal behavior because we have openings, unmonitored entrances. So I want to look at things like leveraging our cameras with some smart software, using crime prevention through environmental design, where we're arranging our territorial reinforcement, like making it hard for somebody to come in a back way, or even putting in a small section of a gate so that we limit the entry points. We really want to think about it in the sense that we're filtering people through one or two entryways that we can monitor at our campus and not having lots of places that people can come on. So with that, that is as brief as I can make this overview without putting you all to sleep, and I'll just open it up to any questions, and then I'll be around, or you can certainly reach out to me for any prolonged questions or anything you want to talk about.
I just really appreciate your background and experience and the expertise that you bring, and thank you so much for the time that you spent. I know Mr. Flowers has enjoyed working with you, and we appreciate, I know you met with Cabinet as well as the Safety Committee, so thank you for all of that. Talk to me just a little bit about, I want to say we called it when you're reunified, when students are, is that what it's called, reunification? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? It seems like that has been a sticky point, and I'd like to see that happen better.
Yeah, so candidly, it's an area that we're lacking in. We haven't done, I didn't find any principals that have actually practiced a reunification to date. The good news with that is it's a really easy thing to do. It's not a hard thing. There is lots of resources for that, and lots of nonprofit groups that specialize in helping districts. As much as I'd like to upsell you a bunch of classes on these things, one of our the benefits of working with our organization, we know the limitations of districts. So where there's a free resource, we'll point you in that direction. So like the I Love You Guys Foundation. So yes, that's an area that you need to work on. Everything from the communications piece to pre-staging equipment for those. That was something that I found, is that not one of the campuses had any pre-staged equipment that we were able to find. So that, and there's always a debate really on whether we tell parents about our reunification places or not. And all of the best practices is that we want to tell them where it is in advance and let them know that it might be one of these three places, but to stay at home until you have an opportunity to go view this. Okay. President Price, there's a great video that I helped produce for Placer County Office of Education, free on their website, on the process of reunification. That will give you a little bit of an idea on what that process looks like that they hired us to help promote for them.
Could we get that? Could you send that to Marty and
absolutely.
We could get it from
I'll
him?
send you just the unedited copy of that so you have it. You don't have to go download it or anything.
Great. So I know you could probably talk for hours on this. I just was wondering if you could give me just maybe your best suggestion or idea on emergency planning when we talk about kids staying in place. If there's an emergency outside that they have to stay in the classroom, what are some things that you would suggest that we're ready for that situation?
So identifying safer corners in every part of your facilities. Safer corners are really established after the Parkland incident. They used them, they didn't use them well. And what we found is when people don't have a place to move to that's better than the rest, and every room there's a better place to be than standing in the center, it exposes you. So, starting with really understanding the lockdown process, and I would even back up to saying one of the things that we don't have here, this is a low cost, no cost implementation, is standardizing our emergency terminology. This is where I would start. Every campus that I went to kind of used different language, and we want to make sure that we have like a one sheet. Again, this is something I can send you to look at. And I even have some cards in my briefcase that have that. That's just standardizing it. Everybody carries it on their lanyard. They can look down and see what a lockdown barricade is. So again, not to draw it out, but safer corners, standardized emergency terminology, practicing that in real time, age appropriate, working with your mental health folks, so we're not overdoing it with youngsters, and doing it appropriately with the older kids.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you taking that into account. We want these kids to feel safe as they are, for sure. And can you just talk, I know we talked about this in our safety meeting, just a little bit. I know the easiest, most obvious thing is fencing. And you mentioned that gives, a false sense of security. Could you address that just a little bit more?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a false sense of security, but one of the concepts that came out in the threat assessment realm is that statistically most of our school shooters come from inside. So I would ask, if you want fencing, what is that fencing for? I worked with a school in Wisconsin, and they're like, Jeff, like the wolves come in, or the moose comes in, and they walk through the playground. All right, that's a great need for a fence, right? Right, I think you want to keep out the foxes and the wolves and whatever else comes in there. Also, if you're a school in a very urban area that has two rival gangs on each side, you don't want them passing through your campus to fight. So I would ask, what is the fence for? Is there a need for the fence? There's some great data from the Hanover Research Group and the RAND Corporation that says it takes about the average, adult about 4 seconds to climb a cyclone fence. So unless we're really talking about putting up 8-foot wrought iron fence that are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and completely surrounding the school, I don't know if it's a great ROI or return of your investment for fencing, unless you can show me that there's a real need for it. I think it's part of that layering process, and I think there's certain schools that portions of it may be benefit to direct people to the front. But generally speaking, if you're worried about active shooters and that, if you're trying to protect against that, I don't think fencing is where I would start. I would make sure that your staff is trained, that your classroom doors and your facility doors are locked. So it's going to be a shift for your district. Your classroom doors were great. I think I found 3 doors that were open out of all 14 sites.
Awesome.
Yeah, and one of those was just it didn't get closed all the way. The other, the teacher didn't actually lock the door. So, and that's a great start. Nobody's ever breached a locked classroom door ever that we know of. All right, so that alone, is incredible.
Huge, right. Thank you.
One thing that had come up in talking to principals about site needs is talking about blinds for the windows. Is that something that you have an opinion about?
As my wife says, I have an opinion about a lot of things.
Okay, well, what is your opinion on that?
My opinion on blinds is, I would say, number one, I think it's important for all of you to visit a school during a lockdown and see what transpires. There's a lot of things. There's like 14 things a teacher has to do. Lights, windows, kids, all of these things. So the more that we can accomplish ahead of the event, the better. So what that means is if I can kind of shut a lot of the blinds and keep those closed throughout the day, the better. You're going to have a trade-off with natural lighting and emotional and social health and those kind of things. But if I can limit the amount of things that teachers need to do in an event, the better. You have to have the ability to take away aim from a bad guy, right? So to answer your question, I think directly is that you need to either have tinting, which is usually cheaper to do, or some way of covering the windows. I prefer tinting because it still lets in the light, but it's going to require somebody to get up there, which would be very obvious, than the high cost of a lot of blinds. And some of the tint, if you do it right, will give you a little bit of ballistic protection too. Good question.
I really appreciated your approach on several things on, what are the cost-free things we can do and implement right away, right? What are those things what is it we're trying to achieve and how do we get there? I appreciate that. Not just, hey, this campus or this district did this, so therefore let's plug and play. I really liked earlier you said environmental design to limit entry points. I thought that was brilliant because, you know, some of our campus, they're designed and they're located in such a way where one is like a complete natural build around it that you're not accessing the back of that playground because literally nature prevents you from doing so, right? And so I really appreciate you looking at that, and, you know, I'm very intrigued about that as well of, you know, maybe even bushes or shrubs or just things just to naturally direct people to the front for access points. I also, you had shared with, I think in one of our committee meetings, that you went onto a campus, and I don't think you used the word annoyed, but you were like, hey, I was stopped like 4 or 5 times. Can you share that with the rest of the board? Because I thought that was a great point to highlight. A cost-free way to really help keep our campuses safe is knowing who's on your campuses and when.
Yeah, one of the things that I advocate for is making sure that everybody wears a name tag, because somebody without a name tag stands out, right? It's not foolproof, obviously, but it's a good kind of a quick indicator. That is somewhat of an issue, I will say too, is that, you know, if you look at the reports, that I didn't see a lot of enforcement of staff wearing name tags. I showed up, I never surprise anybody. They all knew I was coming, and I don't do anything to scare. You know, I usually just start off by taking pictures, and they all knew that I was gonna be there that day. But some of the custodians didn't get the message, and I had a lot of people walk up and just like, hey, can I help you with something? Which is exactly what we wanna see. When I train people, what we call ancillary employees, like your yard duty folks, your custodians, it's one of the biggest groups left out of training. Is we talk about like yes, no, and maybe people. And you can tell right away by just introducing yourself, like, hi, I'm Hector, I work in maintenance. Can I help you find the front office? You can tell right away, you know, whether the person's gonna be cooperative or be a jerk, or, you know, it's like, oh no, I'm a parent, I'm just sitting out here waiting and taking a phone call. So, yeah, I experienced that a lot. Very few of the campuses was I able to linger without getting challenged. And that's what we wanna advocate, when it's safe to do so. Let me put that caveat out there. If you're feeling like the person's hinky, I don't want you going out there talking to them.
Well, I just appreciate that, and I appreciate so many ideas you were able to just rattle off and say, hey, these are great best practices that you guys can implement and do. And I appreciate the time sensitivity, not only from you and your team, but our cabinet, our superintendent, and our sites. You know, 14 campuses since January, that is no easy task, right? But I know it was really important to the board, and we communicated that, and I have to say, just a appreciation of that execution. I know I've already been able to engage with parents that have said, you know, what are we doing? What can we do better? Are we talking about, are we addressing it? And we were able to have some quality vulnerability assessments done on 14 campuses in that short period of time. And so I just want to make sure I recognize that we appreciate that. That is important work. That could have easily been stalled out if we were working with another agency. And so I really appreciate your attention to that detail of making it happen on such a tight timeline, but also giving us really important feedback that we need to know so we can address with some funds and direct some dollars. So thank you again. I really loved the 4 prongs. I wrote them down. You did a great job of reinforcing them multiple times in your presentation of the layering effect. And so I really look forward to us addressing all of those 4 layers together.
Anything else? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
President Price, if I can, I just was remiss in my comments that I forgot to acknowledge that tonight we're honored to have Georgia Navarre spend her birthday with us this evening, and so we appreciate her doing so. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. I won't ask us to sing, but maybe.
Not in the microphones, but yes, we love Georgia. Yeah. All right, item 12.1, our board bylaws require 2 trustees to place an item on the agenda. Trustees, do you have any items to discuss for consideration on the pending agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will now adjourn to closed session.